Hi, this is Indrajit Gupta. I'm co-founder at Founding Fuel. Sometime last month, the Biden government has announced a sweeping set of export controls, including a move to cut China off from certain semiconductor chips made anywhere in the world with US equipment. Now, this is part of a larger US-China tech war and has major implications for global business and also for India. So, to understand this new policy better and its implications, we're here with Professor Venkat Raman from IIM Indore. Professor Raman has written for us on this theme several times before, and I'm here to understand from him what's the best way to get on the inside track. Good morning, Venkat. Great to connect with you. I'm glad that we are having this conversation, given the fact that there's something fairly major brewing for the last few weeks. So my first question to you is, what has been the trigger? What has US, can you just walk us through what the US has done to really disrupt this whole global value chain for chips?
In August 2022, the Biden administration signed what is known as the CHIPS Act. The CHIPS Act, the word CHIPS is actually an abbreviated form for what is creating helpful incentives to produce semiconductors and science act. That is what is the full form. I repeat, creating helpful incentives to produce semiconductors and science act. That is what is the CHIPS Act all about. So as a sinologist, China watcher, I have been studying the US China tech war. Got specially interested ever since China started this mass entrepreneurship plan in 2013, made in China policy, and then Trump came along. So, and Trump's banning of TikTok and WeChat, all that got me interested. What is it that we are talking about? And suddenly we see a plethora of literature talking about emergence of new tech war, Cold War 2.0. And as this whole debate is evolving, how does US deal with China within United States? How do they perceive China, and how China is also engineering a certain kind of a discourse, a certain kind of a political mobilization within China itself, as to how does it deal with the United States choking the various tech value chains, disrupting the tech value chains and choking the supply of chips for China's tech ambitions. So it's very fascinating, and everything is happening so fast, and every new act, new development that is happening is worth looking deep into.
So Venkat, what is therefore being done before we move ahead?
Yeah. So let me, a lot being done. Let me very quickly take you to some of the important things that have happened. So, for example, the Bureau of Industry and Security, a government body which is mandated to exercise effective export control and treaty compliance system, it's taking measures. It's one of its mandates is to ensure that U.S. leadership takes certain initiatives in strategic technologies. And in the light of the current developments, what it has done is it has announced a series of initiatives, new policies, whereby it has set extraterritorial limits on certain export items to China. What do you mean by extraterritorial limits? It means that the BIS has advocated choking export of advanced semiconductors. It has advocated, strict regulation of chip making equipments to China. It has also called upon for very strict, stringent regulations regarding export of supercomputer components. And the BIS has invoked, quote unquote, the national security threat that America has in terms of exporting these high-end chips for China's semiconductor industry and its tech ambitions. More importantly, the Americans are worried that these chips, given China's 5G prowess, might have certain quote unquote implications for quote unquote civil military infusion. That is, using some of these advanced chips for their military upgradation. Number two, entity list. The Americans have barred a certain number of firms, designated certain firms which are banned from importing U.S. goods without a license. That license, one has to get from the Department of Commerce. So the number of Chinese companies under this list has just increased from 130 to 532 during the period 2018 to 2022. Third, they come up with something called foreign product rule. This is a pretty draconian measure that grants US export controls greater extraterritorial reach, as mentioned earlier in the case of BIS. What is this extraterritorial reach? This rule primarily applies to US origin items, but can be extended in scope to cover non-US firms that have used American technology in the process of manufacturing their products, and they have made a name for themselves in the tech value chain. So the BIS has forced semiconductor designers and manufacturers in third countries to limit sales to China's tech giants like Huawei. And then, that is, we started with Chips and Science Act. So what does this act aim to? It aims to strengthen the US position in semiconductor R&D and manufacturing. It aims to incentivize semiconductor manufacturing within the United States. It seeks to facilitate a conducive ecosystem for semiconductor R&D. And last, it seeks to secure US supplies for critical sectors in the tech value chain.